Got all your stuff together?
I'd like to call this meeting
All of this stuff.
to order, a regular meeting of the Board of Mayor and Aldermen, Monday, February
Got any of
24th,
it?
2020 at 5:30 p.m. Would you like to do the roll call?
Yes, I will. Apparently Mayor Lane Curley's absent. So, Mayor Pro Tem Blanks.
Here.
Daniel Berry.
Here.
Lupa Blackwell.
Here.
Robin Dunn.
Here.
Ray Noes.
Here.
Jerry Mathis.
Here.
6.
We have a quorum, I
Yes.
assume. Good deal. See Mr. McGehee, Reverend Tim McGehee out here in the audience. I'd like to have him come to the podium and lead our invocation and pledge of allegiance. If y'all stand, please.
Join me as we pray. Father, our nation is at a pivotal crossroads right now. We know we're divided. We know that there is tension, there is strife. We pray, Lord, that we will follow the instruction of 2 Chronicles, chapter 7, verse 14, that we'll humble ourselves and pray and turn from our wicked ways and seek your face so that you can heal our land. We pray for wisdom, we pray for protection, we pray for guidance. We pray for this meeting tonight and all of the activities that go on throughout our city that make our city function and continue to work well within the institution of government and freedoms and liberties. We thank you for the good people of Tullahoma. We thank you for this great country that we live in and for those that fight to defend our rights and our freedoms. Thank you, Lord, for the flag and for patriotism on this special Flag Day. And we pray for your spirit to be upon us tonight. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Reverend McGehee. Well, pushing right along, we don't have any special commendation or certificates this evening, but we'd like to invite Ariana Newsom to the podium. She's going to give us a presentation tonight from the Youth Empowerment Project. And I'm sure she has a PowerPoint and all kind of neat stuff. Were you going to sing a little bit before you got started or no? No singing. That'll be next time, right? The floor is yours. Take as much time as you need. You're going to do great.
Did everybody get a copy? Raise your hand if you need to show them how we can out. All right. With me I have my friend and team member, Lanny Pessinos, the project advisor, Ms. Robinson, and Ms. Venata, and they're teachers at Tullahoma High School. I've also brought my mom and dad. Yes.
And you're with the Future Business Leaders of America?
Yes, ma'am, FBLA, and we are doing a program called BITS, which I'll explain in my presentation. All right, so a few members of the FBLA team and myself had an opportunity to go to the Children's Hospital at Vanderbilt and learn about a two-phase program called BITS, or Be in the Zone, Turn Off Your Phone. In the first phase was at the hospital. We were presented with different driving statistics of crash data. We also got to speak with head of staff of the hospital, and we watched different PSAs on distracted driving. Then we were able to participate in crash injury assignments in which different students from different schools were assigned different injuries such as a concussion, broken leg, loss of speech, and the students that lost their speech had to speak with a special device. I personally wore goggles that made my vision blurry and ended up giving me a headache, and other people were in wheelchairs and were unable to walk. We found this process really frustrating, and it really helped us sympathize for crash victims and what they have to go through. And then after that, we were able to view a mock trauma in the ER. The situation was that a little boy was hit with a car on his way to school, and the doctors and nurses acted out the procedures and precautions that they would take to help him. And then we listened to public speakers, a wife and a husband, and they explained their grievances when their son was hit by a car on his way to work. And phase 2, which we are currently in, is the school-based program. This is a year-long distracted driving campaign in which, through the detailed instruction guide that we were given at the hospital, we participate and compile a 3-part competition, and I'm in charge of the Youth Empowerment Project, which I'll explain further later. The 3 parts competitions are the campaign competition, social media, and t-shirt design. And this is the t-shirt that my team and I have submitted. The parts of the campaign competition include driver observations, in which at the end of the school day we stand at the exits at THS and we mark down whether the driver is distracted, whether they are a teen or an adult, and we would like to see this number decrease throughout the year. We also participate in and ask students and faculty to participate in the Ford's Driving Skills for Life, which is an online driving test, and at the end they receive a certificate. The Youth Empowerment Project, which I will explain here soon, and other additional activities, which include a mock crash, which we will be doing at the end of March, candygrams that we just did for Valentine's Day, and thumb pledges, which we will be doing here in the next few weeks. And students will paint their fingers and pledge not text and drive and paint it on a poster board. And when everything is all said and done, at the end, we compile all the pictures, community involvement into a campaign book, which will be judged by judges. So the purpose of the Youth Empowerment Project is to make a difference in the community you live in and around. So to do this, I had to collaborate with local law enforcement, the Chief of Police, and Miss Jennifer Moody, and they were extremely helpful in providing me with crash reports in the Tullahoma area. From this, I received reports for almost every street, and then I narrowed it down for 5 or more crashes. I narrowed it down to 4 streets, and from that to 1. Which brings me to my proposal. The street that I have chosen is the Carroll Street and South Jackson Street intersection. At this intersection, there has been a total of 16 crashes, 2 resulting in injuries. The 2 main causes were following improperly and failure to yield. Another cause was distracted driving, but it was not as high as these 2. So the goals of implementing or correcting hazardous conditions on this road were to create a safer driving environment on all roads, reduce the amount of crashes in the area, and promote safer driving habits on all roads. So I'd like to ask you to consider the following. From January 1st, 2019, to October 31st, 2019, there were a total of 655 crashes in Tullahoma. And 544 of those seatbelts were not worn. And 2.44% of those crashes happened on the proposed street. And again, the 2 leading causes were following improperly and failure to yield. Now, I understand that seatbelts not being worn is not a road condition, but is still a safe driving habit that my team and I need to promote. So this is a personal picture that I have taken of the proposed street. And this is a traffic map. Green is normal traffic, yellow is moderate, and red is heavy. And as you can see, this intersection has all 3, which means it's very busy and a lot of cars pass through here every day. Which brings me to my solutions. Solutions for failure to yield. We could install 4 flashing LED yield signs. The LEDs would be red, of course, not white, because then drivers would think headlights were coming at them, and we don't need that. For following improperly, repainting the white lane markers would help with this. And failure to wear a seatbelt. On the poles of 2 of the yield signs, we would put buckle up, it's the law. And on the 2 other ones for distracted driving, we would put save a life, don't text and drive. Now for a cost analysis. For 4 of the 4 yield signs, it would cost $6,400. For the reflective signs, that would be $69.96. And in total, that would be $6,469.96. This cost does not include labor and installation fees, but since these are solar paneled, we could receive volunteers. This also doesn't include the repainting the lane markers because of time constraints. I did not have time to calculate that cost. So, in conclusion, these cost-effective solutions should decrease the amount of crashes happening at this intersection and will also impact the community positively, showing that we care about our citizens and our roadways. Thank you. Any questions?
Where is this intersection?
It's the Carroll Street and South Jackson Street.
Where exactly is that?
On the viaduct.
By the viaduct?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Awesome job.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
First, I think that deserves that. One question I do have is, so you said that you guys are standing out at the schools
Yes, sir.
and counting the distracted drivers. What kind of numbers are we looking at there?
Well, surprisingly, from what I've experienced from when I do them, there's not a lot. There's more adults distracted than teens.
That's what I was gonna ask.
You think it would be the other way around, but it's not. Yeah. We actually have one coming up, I think, next month. So, and then also I've included in the handouts a typed up version of my presentation, which you guys can keep. And then also I typed up a pledge that I would like you guys to sign to not text and drive. And I would like to collect those after you guys have signed them and have read them. I know not everybody has a copy, I apologize.
And I guess another question is, what can we do to help? Are we looking for?
Well, I would really love to see my proposed solutions implemented and actually installed. So I think that would help a lot. And then also, if not these solutions, maybe some others that these have brought up to you guys or something like that.
Awesome.
I love your t-shirt design.
Oh, thank you. My mom got it.
Catchy.
Thank
I think
you.
some of those proposals could be easily implemented. You know, the more expensive one would be something we'd have to work at, I think, but some of those don't look like they'd be too hard
Yeah, it's kind of horrifying.
to
I
implement.
thought it was kind of horrifying that you had so many people who had not buckled up that were in accidents.
Yes, that was really shocking to me when I first saw that too.
Chief Williams, did you find that, did that surprise you to see that 544 people had not buckled up out of the 622?
655.
655 crashes what was that like? I guess that's about 80%, isn't it? Ugh.
I think the data, anytime you look at the data and you start going through the numbers on, okay, what are the causes of these crashes? Drivers that tend to exhibit riskier behaviors when it comes to taking chances or failure to yield or things like that. It wasn't as surprising. The number was a little high, I thought, but like I said, when you start looking at some of the other driving behaviors that are causing some of the accidents, then, you know, drivers that exhibit a lot riskier behaviors when behind the wheel aren't always going to also follow through in some of the other areas.
So I think he's saying those of us that wear seatbelts are better drivers.
Yes.
I hope that we're safer if we're taking the time to buckle up and follow some of the other measures. So.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Alrighty, so I am done. And yes, I'll come around and collect this.
Is this the one?
This is it. Print, and then you're down here. Thank you. Great job.
Well, rest of mine's a little tough, but
That's all right.
Thank you.
Great job.
So at this time, do we have any comments from our citizens? Mr. Sandlin, come to the podium and give us your address, please, sir. Name and address, so some people may not know you.
Greg Sandlin, 112 Thomaswood Chase. Yeah, I just had a couple of things I wanted to bring before the board tonight. I'm sorry the mayor couldn't be here. First of all, normally I come and present about the Public Building Authority. I stepped down from that role. There's going to be a new person stepping into that role. If you want input on that, talk to your county commissioner, and that's going to happen in March, I believe. Secondly, I was in Walmart Saturday. We run into lots of our friends in Walmart, and I ran into a friend who's about to cut a $40,000 property tax check. That would be city and county. He has a small business in Tullahoma, and he lives in Tullahoma. And then I talked to another friend. It's the time of the year where we're writing those checks, right? Another friend who's cutting a $25,000 check for his small business in the city limits. You know, I wrote my little $3,000 checks, 2 checks this week also. You know, I think Tullahoma is doing well. I think phenomenal retail growth. You know, I'd love to see what kind of retail sales tax that Publix is bringing in, and Aldi, some of the newer things. But so I just wanted to challenge the board as budget prep time is approaching. I want to encourage the board, I challenge you to look for a cut in our property taxes. Aim for 10 cents maybe. As I recall, 1 cent on tax is roughly $35,000. So $350,000 would be about a 1.2% cut in the budget, if my math is right. But I just wanted to challenge you on that. It's not a lot of money, but I think it would communicate a lot to the citizens and to the businesses. Because the businesses will just, you know, the people that are leasing property, they're just going to pass that cost on to the leaseor. So I just wanted to encourage you to do that as that time approaches. Every penny you put back in the public's pocket, they're probably going to spend a lot of that locally. And the compounding growth of money being spent in the marketplace is pretty powerful. So that's all I had. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any comments from any other citizens? Commissioner Seaver, you had anything you'd like to add to that?
Yes, I'm saying maybe not right now.
All right. I guess it's time for the reports from our board here. We'll start with Alderman Noes. We'll go your way and come around.
Well, thank you. On last Friday, I had an opportunity to meet with some people from Franklin. We were looking at development of our downtown, and beautifying and rehabbing our downtown city. And that was an eye-opener, what they were doing in Franklin, Tennessee, through their Heritage Foundation there. And it's a beautiful downtown city they have. And they looked at Tullahoma and said, you know, this is what we looked like 20 years ago. And they were pointing out that as we embark on a revitalization of our downtown, it's not a quick fix for us, it's a journey, but we can get there. And that was my activity for Friday with that group, and it was an eye-opener to me, so that was my primary report, sir.
Thank you, Ray. Alderman Dunn.
Sure. Well, the Go Green team is still gearing up. We've got a rain garden that we're putting in at East Lincoln Elementary that's going to be sometime between mid-April and mid-March. So we're going to have to pin down a date for that pretty soon because I need about 50 to 100 volunteers with shovels to help. You want to bring your shovel out?
Absolutely.
Okay. So we'll be all right. Ray will be with us, so we'll be good. But the housing authority is just moving right along. They've got they had their a clean audit this last time around, so things are going well.
for bringing the shovel. Robin, I'll even bring a pair of gloves for you.
Thank you, Ray. Appreciate it. Yeah, it'll be good. So I'm excited about that. I just talked to the greenhouse and getting our little plants situated, so it should be good. So.
Mayor Pro Tem Blanks, I did fail to mention one thing that was very important that did go on this past weekend. On Saturday, we had our Hall of Fame again for Tullahoma.
Mm-hmm.
That was a wonderful event. Our mayor was not there, but he did present a video welcoming the group there. And I want to encourage any of you who were not at the event to watch it, as it will be played back on Channel 6 this week. The mayor's monologue for welcoming that event was his finest hour as the mayor of Tullahoma. Don't miss it.
Thank you. Anything else?
That's all I can think of at the time.
Well, you can add it any time. Alderman Black.
Bear with me, it's been a busy past 2 weeks. So, a couple things that I've been doing is Alderman Dunn and I went to Hickerson Elementary and talked to the kids about elections and how to get involved in elections and all of that kind of stuff. And then we actually, because we did that, we put it out there in the world, we had a homeschool group reach out to us. And so we came here, and I want to thank Mrs. Moody and Chief Williams for talking to the group as well about what our city does, talking to them a little bit about the elections that are upcoming this year, and then they toured City Hall. So there was a bunch of them. I felt like there was probably about 40 to 50 kids here.
This room
People,
was
yeah,
full.
this room was filled, and that was a lot of fun. And they had some really intense questions. I also went to Hickerson Elementary and talked to the kids about public speaking, and it was a blast with 3rd and 4th graders. I had them write a speech and give them, and it was fabulous. So I'm really excited. Hickerson Elementary, they're doing some great work over there. So really enjoyed going there. I visited with the Kiwanis and talked to them about the task force, the Coffee County Domestic Violence Task Force that I'm sitting on, and what work we're doing with that. So one of the things I've done the past 2 weeks is I was at East Middle School talking to the 7th graders about what healthy relationships look like and what are warning signs for unhealthy relationships. And so Kelly Gilbert with Haven of Hope and I will be on the 6th in West Middle School talking to their 7th graders as well. Because one of the things we saw is that we really want to start talking with young people so that they can realize what isn't a healthy relationship. So hopefully they won't be passing that along to their families as generational violence continues. Tourism Council, we're been working on a RAC card. I know Winston's been working really, really hard on that, and kudos to him because that is a beast in and of itself to put together for it to go out to Jack Daniels and to other, I guess I don't know how to put them, but when you're on the highway and you stop and you pull over and there's those places to use the restroom and you can find those little RAC cards, those places. So he's been working hard on that, and we've been looking at that. And then I think Board of Education. It looks like this week and next week they're doing interviews for Director of Schools positions. They're having breakfast in the morning tomorrow, and then next day, and then next week the same, Tuesday, Wednesday, for their potential candidates who are coming in. So I'll be attending those. And then the last thing I want to say is happy birthday to Erin McCullough, who's here, and she comes here every week and puts things out in the newspaper, and we appreciate you doing that, and happy birthday. That's it.
Thank you. Good report. Alderman Berry.
Yeah, Mayor, I don't like going after Ms. Blackwell. It's a difficult act to follow. It's a long list, and I can't sound as excited as she does. I practiced.
Coffee.
Yeah. A couple things real quick. Looking through the department reports, want to thank Lieutenant Farrell and for 31 years of service, Patrolman Coleman for his 2 years, and welcome our 2 new, they joined us last month, Zach Weaver and Blackburn. I've got one question on the fire report. At the bottom it says dollar amount saved. Now, is that the amount of money that you guys saved from, sorry.
I have been waiting a long time for you to be on the hot seat.
No, it's not a hot seat, if it's what I think it is. So you gotta, yeah.
Usually it's all accolades, so it is really
Well, I think that this is I think the dollar amount saved in these reports here, is that the amount of money that the department was able to save from destruction, right?
Yes.
So, no hot seat, I want to say, this is awesome. $6.3 million
We had a
savings.
fire one Sunday morning in January at Wisco Envelope,
So cheated.
and they got there quickly and put the fire out. If they had not responded, the building would have burnt down.
That's amazing.
We saved millions.
Yeah, that's.
Mr. Gray was there at the same time and was very pleased with our performance. The guys and women did a great job.
Awesome.
That was
That
a
was
huge
just
thing.
one of those kind of hidden numbers that you see and you don't realize the money
Yeah,
and
you're right.
lives.
They train and they prepare and they
Yeah.
hope they don't need it. But at a time like that, you can see how beneficial it was to the
beneficial,
community.
Yeah, it was early, there was ice, it's a flat roof, there was ice on the roof, there was a heat and air unit on the roof, there was a lot of areas where there could have been disaster, but it went well, we did well.
So
So
accolades again, and thank you to you and your staff.
I'll pass it along to the firefighters. Thank you.
Since we last met, was able to last Friday speak with the Noon Rotary Club. It was kind of a last minute, I think it was General Snyder, Lieutenant Snyder was supposed, I was a stand-in, I was going there for lunch anyway. So they didn't get, it was about an hour beforehand, he had asked me if I would speak. So, but we just talked about a couple of the things going down in the city, a couple of projects I'm working on. And it was an opportunity to, I know they were all excited about it, but to talk to them about the census and the importance of doing that, and going over some numbers and how much money we lose when we don't for the state. I think it was 15 million in 2010 census and 13 million in, I'm sorry, the 2000 and 2010 was around 13 million that federal funds that weren't allocated to the state because of the participation rates. So it's important to get out there and get online this year, so there's really no excuse. I held a town hall and we discussed, I was reached out and we discussed the youth sports in Tullahoma. We had a pretty big crowd, and I apologize to those that stood in the hallway and some in the windowsill. We had representatives there from pretty much all the different sports organizations. I don't think swim team was able to make it. I'll put together an email with the majority of the feedback that we received from there. But a couple of them, there was some real positive feedback on the grounds crew and all that they do. We talked about numbers being down for various reasons, ranging from social and cultural issues and people just not getting out there, to affordability. We talked about a couple issues with some of the facilities. I'll include in the email some need for bathroom facilities at, I believe, the Johnson Lane area. And I think we've got a picture somewhere on a wall that shows that coming, or some of the upgrades there at that facility. And then discussion over a couple of the issues, just some things, some gates and some safety issues, helping keep kids in there. And overall, just kind of looking for, I came up with a partnership, a little bit better partnership with the city involving kind of communication. So an idea that we had discussed was possibly looking at putting together a committee, or I know we've got the sports council, but I don't know that that's what it does, with all the different major sports organizations that are here to sit and talk and share ideas and help enable communication, better flow with the city. Almost done. While I'm talking about the town halls, I was recently came to my attention that the intent and purpose of these wasn't really clear. And primarily, I hold these because I feel that it's my role to listen and inform. And generally how they go is I'll spend 15, 20 minutes talking about what we talked about in the last board meeting, the projects and committees that I sit on. And then we'll do a presentation over one, we did kind of the structure and organization of the city, or we'll do a presentation over how budgets work or different pieces. Every now and then, like last week, a group will come and say, hey, I want to talk about this. And so it's a time just for me to sit and listen. There's no expectations for the other aldermen. There's no expectations for staff. If something comes up that needs to be discussed, I'll shoot an email off or a phone call to Administrator Moody. But other than that, it's just a way for me, or you, or anybody that wants to attend, I think we do copies, to sit and listen. And that is the end.
Thank you. Coach Mathis.
Thank you,
Tell me
Mr.
what's
Mayor.
going on?
Now, Miss Blackwell, you know, you talk so fast, I would think maybe you ought to do that one more time for us, so we can hear it one more time.
You don't want me to do that.
I'm just kidding. I think there's something that we need to be aware of, and that's our basketball teams. They just finished the district championships, and our boys, for a change, were district champions. And they will be hosting the region this week in Tullahoma, and so will the girls. They got beat by Coffee County, but it was a really good game. And last year, the girls won the district, and this time they're second. So our two basketball teams have done really well, and they should be recognized. And that, for the boys, is a plus because it's been a long time.
Yeah.
So that's all I have.
Thank you, Coach. Meetings that I've attended since I was here last, Duck River Water Board met last Wednesday. Everything is going well there. We've had a lot of rain. I think in February so far we probably have 14 inches or so. So that's always a challenge to keep the water clean when there's a lot of rainfall that comes into the lake, but they get it done and we have clean drinking water. TUA met last week as well. Everything's going well on that respect. We're up 29 on light tube sign up, so we're pushing 4,000, which is wonderful. Also met with the Arts Council Thursday night. We're looking for 2 at-large members, correct? If anybody's interested in helping with the Arts Council here in town, if you'll come to here to City Hall, sign a participation form, we would love to have you. We're sort of revamping the board and getting our vision for the next few years. We are not going to have a arts festival this year, mostly due to numbers and planning, I would say, but we expect to continue that in years to come. Also would like to let everybody know, if you've not early voted, early voting ends tomorrow, if I'm correct. And then after early voting closes, primary is March 3rd, if I'm correct. So, let's get out and vote. If you look at the turnout in some of these off-year elections, or, not anything big on the ballot, it's sort of pathetic. So I have been elected as an alderman with as little as 7% of the vote in this town, so.
5 votes.
What was the turnout, though, in your election?
Was it 1503?
Yeah.
was
So,
higher.
I would encourage y'all to vote. You don't want a bunch of old men up here leading the city. Just, I'm not saying I'm old, but, we have some younger members here, and I appreciate, some new blood on board. I'm digging a hole.
Yes, you are.
For myself. That's all I have, so we'll go now to report from our city attorney. Please, sir.
Yes, it's started.
So, just so y'all won't be bored about legal matters, I'm going to report several other things to you and just make some comments if I might. I want to tell you first that Mr. Berry did a great job at Rotary last Friday. And if any of you want to speak to Rotary, if you'll tell me or Mr. Noahs, we'll make arrangements to get you on our programs one of these days. Ray and I are both members of Rotary, and we have some really good programs. And if any of you are interested in joining the New Rotary Club, we'd be happy to talk to you about that as well. We have a lot of good projects, and thank you, Mr. Berry, for coming today. I appreciate it. Also, I went to the Sports Council banquet on Saturday night. I'm really glad I did. That was quite an event. First of all, I knew almost all the people that were honored at that, which is really good. And I enjoyed that and enjoyed seeing some of them that got to come back for that event. Secondly, What Mr. Glick did to that gym is just absolutely amazing. When you walked into that facility, you would have thought you were in a ballroom in New York City. It was beautifully done, and it was a very, very nice event. So I urge you all next year to come to it again, because I think he'll outdo himself year after year after year. Thirdly, on your agenda tonight is a resolution to approve the purchase of real property in downtown Tullahoma. When I discovered that it was for sale, I talked to Ms. Moody about that, and she immediately jumped into the program, and we were able to negotiate, mostly with her, but with my help, I hope, the purchase of that property. That's going to be very important to us in providing some more downtown parking in Tullahoma. It had been privately owned. It was used as a private parking lot for a business, and in conjunction with the purchase of the parking lot that we acquired, we also acquired the business building, which may have some uses now and in the future may be something else that we can adapt it to. But this property actually in the back connects up with the parking lot behind the Roberts property that we acquired by donation a couple of months ago. So that's something that's really important for our downtown development, I think. And I think maybe that kind of thing will go along with a lot of other things that we're doing in Tullahoma now relative to improving the downtown district. I'm a member of the committee, the downtown committee that Mr. Brooks is heading up, and Shelley Smith, who's on our planning commission, and they're doing a lot of work. Franklin would be sort of a role model for Tullahoma. I do remember when Tullahoma was larger than Franklin, believe it or not. And I will say this, Franklin has always been a beautiful town because they didn't come in there and deface a lot of their buildings with some cheap modern upgrades like plastic siding and aluminum siding and things like that. But we have the potential to do something really good in downtown Tullahoma, and that committee is working really hard to do that. So any kind of support y'all can give to them would be very, very good. At the board meeting last time, the board approved an application for or an initiative, and I'm not sure exactly what it was, for a study of the widening and development of Cedar Lane. And I happened to mention that to some other people here in town, and they indicated to me, and then I remembered that a number of years ago we did a study on the widening of Cedar Lane. So I called Mr. Bolts today about that. He remembered it too. I'm trying to find my file on that, and he's going to come and talk with Ms. Moody about it, see if we can find his file, because they might be able to build on what we've already done rather than starting from scratch all over again. So this has been on the back burner for many, many, many years because it's the need that we have. And I think that might help us expedite that study. It might be something real positive for the city in the future. And then down to the last thing, we're going to be filing our delinquent property tax cases this week. So beware you have not paid, because immediately there's going to be penalty and interest on top of your taxes. So you've got till the last day of this month to file those.
Okay.
Do you have any questions? I mean to pay those, excuse me, to pay them. We're going to file them before the last day of the month too. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Worsham. Let's see if we have a report from our city administrator, Mrs. Moody.
Yes.
Tell us.
Would love to give you an update on a few things. One is I've had some very good conversations with our Chamber of Commerce and had a meeting with Rich Ellis, who happens to serve on our Tullahoma Area Economic Development Board and also the Chamber Board. And some ideas that came up during the strategic planning sessions with the TAEDC board kind of brought to the forefront that there could be more communication and a stronger relationship between the city and the business community. And especially I'm looking forward to hearing more from businesses about how the city could work with them, things we could do to help them expand, things we could do to help keep them, so that business retention element. And then I found out that the chamber also does pop-in visits, and there's an opportunity for myself and maybe Winston Brooks or Tom Robinson, if you'd like, for us to join them in some of those pop-in visits. And I feel like that would be an opportunity for us to hear those conversations firsthand instead of having information pass through us. One of the things that I've done to kind of get more involved and find out about the chamber and recommend that any of our businesses do the same is I went to the Chamber Connect meeting last week. And that's where the chamber, just in a quick morning, like 1 hour breakfast, they talk about the different benefits and the value that you get as a chamber member. And so that was a good networking opportunity. And then in the future, the chamber board, I believe they'll have to vote on this, but one of the things we discussed is the city having a liaison position added to the board so that we have a regular opportunity to attend their board meetings. And again, that's a way we can strengthen. Hope Sarton regularly attends the TAEDC board meetings, but we hadn't regularly attended her board meetings, and I think that would be an improvement. So I just wanted to share those developments with you. I feel really optimistic. We have a lot going on in Tullahoma, and it's the perfect time for us to be more aligned in how we're working together. And then one thing I wanted to share about the census, the upcoming census, is that countywide, we were approached about buying some t-shirts. And so city employees, we're looking now, kind of gathering the numbers, but we'll be participating along with the county and the county schools in wearing t-shirts to help promote the census and hopefully encourage people to participate and just be more aware that it's happening. I would say as much as possible when you get that census and the survey in the mail, fill it out so that nobody has to come knock on your door and multiple times ask you to fill it out, because that will happen. And then the other thing I always like to share about the census is just to remind people that being counted is not about asking you to pay more taxes. It's about the city of Tullahoma getting the fair share of taxes that you already pay. So all of our citizens are paying state taxes, state sales taxes, federal taxes that are allocated back to communities based on their population. And for each person in Tullahoma that is not counted, we lose out on $1,091 a year. So it's really important. We don't want to count you so that you have to pay more. We just want to make sure that we get that fair share that we already pay. And then I also wanted to mention to the board, as you've probably seen, maybe coming in tonight, we have broken ground on the site of the new police building. And so while it continues to rain almost every single day because it is February, I'm hoping that March 9th may be a good day for us to get out with some golden shovels and hard hats and take a photo. So be thinking about March 9th. We have a board meeting at 5:30 that night, but I'm thinking about scheduling that groundbreaking for 4:30. So if you could come a little early, let me know if you have a conflict with that date and we can look at another date. Also, believe it or not, it is time. Mr. Sandlin was right on point. It's time to start thinking about our annual budget. And next meeting, the city schools will be here to do their presentation and let you know about successes of last year, but also what priorities and thoughts they're having going into their budget preparations. I want to remind you that the farmers market season is coming up. We've been doing a lot of work with Lynn Atelski, our farmers market manager, and she's put together an executive board made up of farmers, of course, vendors from the market, and we are looking forward to their season starting a month early. They're going to start beginning of April and go through the end of October of this year. And they're also starting an hour earlier. They're Monday nights from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. And so please support that and be thinking about our farmers and hope they have a good year this year. And that's really it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Moody. Let's right on into the consent agenda. We have 4 items we're going to vote on tonight. Consent agenda are items that are listed, and they're usually non-controversial. If anybody on the board wants to pull them off and talk about them, we can. But we'll be voting on item number 20-19, minutes of February 10th, 2020 regular meeting. Item 2020, January financial report. Item 2021, approve and authorize the mayor to execute a municipal advisor agreement with Stevens Incorporated. And 4, item 2022, approve a request to display temporary signage promoting the Tullahoma Farmers Market each Monday during the market season, which runs from April through October 2020. I'd like to entertain a motion.
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Lois, and then any discussion? This is consent. All in favor? Push green and opposed. Red. Passes unanimously. 6-0. Thank you, Ms. Goldberg. Old business, we have a few items under old business. Two items. First one's ordinance number 1533, an ordinance to amend the code of ordinances of the city of Tullahoma, Tennessee by repealing and replacing in its entirety Chapter 3, Beer, Section 8-826, prohibited contact or activities by beer permit holders of Title 8 alcoholic beverages, adopt on the second and final of two readings. Can I get a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion on this? Need a second and final two readings. All in favor, push your green button. That's 6-0. Next item of old business, ordinance number 1534, an ordinance to amend the code of ordinances of the city of Tullahoma, Tennessee by repealing and replacing in its entirety Chapter 2, intoxicating liquors, Section 8-223, visible open containers on streets, etc., prohibited, of Title 8 alcoholic beverages, adopt on the second and final of two readings.
Move to approve.
Second.
It's done, it's primary and it's black secondary. All in favor, push the green button. Any opposition, push the red button. That is approved 6-0. Don't have any other old business. We'll go right into new business. Item number 20-23, ratify approval of the purchase of real property at 114 Southwest Atlantic Street and 108 South Atlantic Street in downtown Tullahoma, the amount of $152,000.
I move to approve item number 2023.
I'll second.
We've got a proper motion and a second. Any discussion on this?
I have a couple questions.
Certainly.
So we're going to purchase it for $152, and the purpose is going to be, what are we putting there?
Well, I'll share how this came about. I think, as you know, the city has made some significant investments in our downtown in recent years. Many of those preceding me, but beginning probably with the downtown infrastructure improvements, the sidewalk, streetscape improvements that you have downtown, the street trees, leading up to today where we are looking at a major repaving project in the downtown. We're looking at upgrading our signalized intersections along Jackson Street. We've done the North Jackson Street streetscape plan, which I know does not cover the downtown district, but we had a lot of conversation in those public meetings about how we could tie together improvements all along and including parts of South Jackson Street, even though we were studying a section of North Jackson. So we've been looking at downtown. We feel like it is part of the first impression that businesses get when we're talking about economic development and attracting businesses. We know that it's part of the face or the welcome front door of our community, and the vibrancy of that area speaks really to the vibrancy of the whole community. So I think any time that a piece of property becomes available, like this one did, a real estate sign went up, I think we have an obligation to look at it and see if it's of strategic interest, and if it's aligned with our economic development goals. And so this for a few reasons. One being that we did come into ownership of a downtown building through donation. You know, we had the property owner in court for failure to keep his property up to code. And so that was really something we weren't looking to acquire, but it's fortunate that we did. It came along right at the same time that we started having an interest in entrepreneurship and how we could develop maybe an innovation center or a co-working space. Well, that new building happens to be exactly the square footage of the entrepreneur centers and co-working spaces that we're seeing in other communities. So we started looking at that, okay, that could be an idea. And this other building became available, and it's a small building and a parking lot. And I think the primary reason to look at it is so that we can own the property and have a say in how it develops in the future. That could be in the short term. I think we would have a good use for it, to use along with the building on West Lincoln Street for parking purposes. I think also it could be a lot that serves any of the downtown employees or business owners, so that they're not parking along Lincoln Street where we'd like to see the public and the customers parking. So it has an interest there. I also have an interest in seeing us continue some of those beautiful streetscape improvements and make some improvements to that lot. One of the improvements I think we could make is we could finally solve our downtown garbage issue. One of the reasons that I haven't been able to help our downtown restaurants is we don't own a single piece of property between Grundy and Lauderdale. And so we didn't have a location that we could place a city dumpster. We've had to rely on private property owners to take care of that issue. So I'm really looking at both properties, the one that was donated and possibly acquiring this new one and finding the right location for us to put 2 dumpsters and a recycling area, and do it in a way that's tasteful and screened, improve that lot, and also look at where we have some easements between buildings. We could look at Wall Street Alley and the easement that we have for utilities and look at improving those spaces. Again, because we haven't owned any spaces, I feel like we haven't had the opportunity to make improvements that could show the downtown what those could look like. So I've heard different ideas from maybe making it look more like a plaza with cafe tables and chairs and string lights, landscape improvements or potted plants, things like that. We could take a look at using this property for that and really let it be a model for what we'd like other areas of downtown to look like. So those are the primary reasons. I did share, I think with several of you, that the parking lot now, there are some business owners who are leasing parking spaces in that lot, and that's something we could look at as well. We could look at making that a permit-only lot, and that's how you would preserve it for the downtown businesses or the employees to have a place to park. But I will by no means say that we have a parking issue. I think we leased CSX property for 2 large parking lots along Atlantic Street, and those are regularly available to park in, I think, any day of the week. But right on West Lincoln Street, in front of the businesses there, I would say that's the area where we have the most difficulty and would like to see some turnover of spaces on a more regular basis. But that's a long answer, but I appreciate you letting me take the time to explain that. Those are some of the reasons why I thought this was a good and strategic purchase for the city.
And will the people who are already leasing those parking spots, will they be able to continue their lease with those parking spots?
I think that's something for us to discuss, if that's what, we don't currently have permit parking anywhere in the city, so that'd be something we would have to draft an ordinance and bring it to you to decide if you want to do permit parking.
On the next resolution, it says that it's anticipated that commercial rents and parking fees will be sufficient for the Tullahoma Industrial Board to repay the loan in full. So that would indicate that we are, and have decided we are going to do permanent parking. If we're not going to do that, then how are we going to repay the loan?
Well, I think the intent of that resolution was just to explain you have the opportunity. Let me see if we're breaking up it.
Page 58.
So anticipated commercial rents and parking fees would be sufficient for the Industrial Development Board to repay the loan. I know I'll have to ask Sue Wilson for some help on this, but I interpreted that commercial rents to include rent that the Industrial Development Board already receives. This board owns the Rock 10 building, is commonly referred to as the Rock 10 building. It's at South Anderson Street in West Carroll, and they receive revenue off of that property. So I think without any additional rent coming off of this particular piece, the industrial board has enough income off of that other property that could repay this loan. And parking fees is something we could look at. We could even amend this resolution to take that out if you're not comfortable with it.
Well, I think, point of order, we need to vote on the item, and then we can go to the resolution.
Yeah, don't go to the item
Dovetail.
next.
And that is the intent behind the order on the agenda, is that first we look at your approval for the purchase, and then second, a resolution as a mechanism of funding it.
I guess I understand. I think I disagree that anytime property comes available, we should buy it just so that we have a say in how it's used. I understand wanting to control some things in
That's actually
the
a little
downtown
bit of a
area.
misstatement, so what I said was, I think we should look at it.
So, and have a, so we can have a say in how it's used is what you said.
Anytime a piece of property becomes available in the downtown, I think we have an obligation to look at it and see if it fits in our strategic interest. Because we have taken a vital interest in revitalizing downtown Tullahoma. Like I said, it is an economic engine for us. It is the face of our community. It is what people who are deciding if they're gonna move their families here, if they're gonna open a business here, they're going to drive through our downtown and they're gonna look at the health and vibrancy of it and make that decision. And so we want it to be a good representation.
I would agree. And it being that vital, do we have a plan that we can look at as to what we want for the downtown and what that vision, what those goals are that we're trying to do so that we can see that that fits in? Is that a tangible thing that we can look at and see?
Well, I would say I don't feel like we have necessarily a written down plan, but we have started participating in this Tennessee Downtowns program, which is an accelerator or an incubator program to get us to become a Main Street. And Main Street is a nationally accredited program that you have to do specific things to be in it. One of them may be developing a downtown master plan. So right now, we have a comprehensive growth plan that's for the entire city, but we don't have these specific neighborhood detailed plans. It's something that will be on my list of recommendations for the next budget year. I think we've talked a little bit about that, at least at the planning commission level, that our comprehensive growth plan is 11 years old and needs badly to be updated. I also think, along with the improvements we've already made and what we're thinking about investing in the future, it is time to have a downtown master plan where I think we've done a good job of having this downtown committee and talking to the downtown business owners at a fairly informal level about what they'd like to see, but it probably does need to be formalized into a plan.
I think I'm just uncomfortable with just buying it and not knowing what we're doing with it. I think it's we're buying it just to have it without saying how we're gonna pay for it, what we're gonna do. We're losing $1,800 a year in tax revenue off of it. We're using money from the industrial board, which I'm not sure where that goes. And if it's just there, we could be using it to invest in some of the priorities that the citizens have. Like, that's just me. I have no more discussion.
Call the question.
I'd like to comment on the visit that we had from our friends from consultants from Franklin. We showed them that property and the building that's associated with it and told them that we were in the process of buying it, and they were very enthusiastic about that and commending us for taking the action to get that to add to our opportunities that we have for developing downtown. It just permits some opportunities. If we didn't control it, there's a lot of other things could happen. But they were excited, favorable, and excited about us having that property. So
I'm thrilled about this opportunity. This is wonderful.
I am am too.
This is excellent.
I also am
Good
thrilled about the idea of patio, like a cafe tables and string lights.
I'm picturing a linear,
Well, don't we have some business
park
owners that
with.
are wanting to do the cafe and string lights outside of their areas as well? I mean, I'm just not a fan. If a private business can do it and we can put a business there and we can up our sales tax and up our property tax and
Yeah, to that
And
point,
I mean, we
I
use
agree
zoning ordinances to
wholeheartedly.
control what goes in places, so if we don't want something there, then we can.
So that is
handle it that
exactly why
way.
we're working so hard at making our downtown vibrant and have invested in the public areas that we have. But at this time, I don't know that we have a developer here that's ready to do the type of development we're talking about. And also, the best incentive that we can have is land. So while we've done TIFs, we've done pilots, I promise you, the simplest and best incentive you can give is a break on the price of land to attract a developer and to attract the type of development you want. So I think almost all of you have served on the planning commission at some term, and you hear this advice a lot. If you care about how a piece of property in the city of Tullahoma is going to be developed, the best thing you can do is own the property. That is the only way you can have certainty. And so, again, I think it's a strategic investment that we're making, and there's got to be a short-term and long-term vision associated with it. In the long term, I hope that it does return into private hands and get back on the tax roll. That's exactly what we want to do. We also want to be strategic in what we do with it in the short term so that we can add value and increase the property values of the people in this neighboring properties. So all of those things, when we invest in our commercial properties, when we invest in downtown, those properties are taxed at 40%. That's the best and smartest thing we can do to try to hold our property tax rate down. Because, as you know, the way that the city makes income on property taxes, it's proportional. As property values go up, the state makes us adopt a new certified rate, and the rate comes down because we're not allowed to profit off of that reappraisal. So the more that we increase property values, the less the rate needs to be to bring in new revenue for the city.
And to talk to many of the business owners down there, you know, and not to speak for Mr. Taylor because he's not here, but sanitation is a huge concern. And to not have a place where they can put their trash is a difficult and sticky situation that has been it's been hotly contested.
But have
So.
you spoken to the Londons and 122 West and Daddy Billy's about trash being over there?
Yes,
I have.
I think
and
it's
they're
called
not
to
thrilled
question.
with that.
Call to question.
Yeah.
You call the question?
I have.
All right, we've talked about this, and we talked about it a little bit more, and
I got one thing to say, now, this has nothing to do with that one.
quickly.
People coming into Tullahoma, the first place they see is this street right here. They don't see uptown. They see this street here. When they come this way, right through the middle of Tullahoma, they come this way, right through the middle of Tullahoma. This area right in here is the one that needs to be upgraded. It would be nice to have the street lights, it'd be nice to have the sidewalks, it would be nice for that to be revitalized along with that part up there.
Maybe we can get there.
If we don't, we're losing what we think we need to be doing.
All right, we have an item, we have discussion, let's vote. Green is go and red is no go. One in opposition, the rest are.
5-1.
Yeah, so it passes. So the next item is resolution number 1822. I'm going to read this resolution. A resolution by the Board of Mayor and Aldermen to approve an Urban Development Action Grant, also known as UDAG, loan application to support the purchase of the real property in downtown Tullahoma. Whereas the Board of Mayor and Aldermen of the City of Tullahoma, Tennessee desires to support and encourage a revitalization of downtown. And whereas the purchase of commercial property with approximately 26 parking spaces in the downtown area would provide logistical and economic advantage to the city of Tullahoma, and whereas such an opportunity would be an appropriate endeavor for the City Industrial Development Board to fund through the UDAG Commercial Loan Program in the amount of $75,000, and whereas it is anticipated that commercial rents and parking fees would be sufficient for the Tullahoma Industrial Development Board to repay the loan in full. And whereas Tullahoma Industrial Development Board has provided certain financial information as part of the application, and whereas the information has been found in the sole judgment of the reviewers to be adequate, satisfactory, and supported of good lending practices. And whereas the loan committee of the city of Tullahoma has provided a positive recommendation in the amount of $75,000, and whereas the board of mayor and aldermen of the city of Tullahoma, Tennessee desires to approve the loan request of Tullahoma Industrial Development Board, and said, now therefore be it resolved by the board of mayor and aldermen of the city of Tullahoma, Tennessee, that the mayor and city recorder are authorized to enter into an agreement with the Tullahoma Industrial Development Board to grant its request for UDAG funds, subject to legal review and the execution of whatever documents are necessary in order to consummate such loan and bind Tullahoma Industrial Development Board to repayment and the offering of adequate collateral to ensure repayment, all within the guidelines of the UDAG program. Be it further resolved that this resolution shall be in full force and effect from and after its passage, the public welfare requiring this 24th of February 2020. So we have a resolution out there, and I've read it and didn't choke. Do I have a motion to approve? And a
Second.
Second by Alderman Dunn. Any other discussion?
I'd like to amend it to remove the parking fees.
All right, well, we have to go to our original person that made the motion.
Motion on the amendment.
Make a motion on the amendment.
Is there any concerns with doing, can I ask Jennifer a question from here?
Certainly.
Is there any concerns with doing that?
I don't have a concern with it, do you, Sue?
No, we have the commercial rents, which would be the source for payments anyway. The parking fees were something that was potential down the road, that wasn't something that was.
Okay, move to approve with the amendment of removing parking fees. Is that how you need it?
You just second mine. You second mine, and we vote.
I second his? Okay, so I'll second it.
Just to remove that, whereas,
Just the and parking fees.
On the fourth whereas, remove and parking fees.
so the motion was made by Barry and seconded by Blackwell as an amendment
As an
to
amendment.
remove the word.
Now we need to
and
vote on the
parking fees.
amendment.
The amendment,
No.
correct.
So we now vote on the amendment.
We now vote on the amendment. All in favor of the amendment, vote green, and opposed, vote red.
So, actually, that would be you or no.
I'm not in favor of removing the fees on parking. But
It says.
now we go back to the original resolution. We have a resolution with an amendment.
Correct.
Any other discussion? All in favor of the resolution as amended, vote green. And it passes 5-1. So we'll push on to ordinance 1535, an ordinance to amend the zoning map of the city of Tullahoma, Tennessee, as set forth in the Tullahoma Municipal Code, which is ordinance number 1392, to rezone 2 parcels addressed as 330 Broderick Street. That's in the Coffee County Tax Map 124E, Group J, parcel 005.02, and Ann Street, which is in Coffee County Tax Map 124E, Group 3, parcel 005.00, from C2, General Commercial District, to I1, which is Restricted Manufacturing and Warehousing District, set a public hearing for Monday, April 13th, 2020, and adopt on the first of 2 readings. Do we have a
Move to approve.
Second.
move to approve by Noyes and seconded by Blackwell? Any discussion on this?
I do have, and Ms. Golden, can you help me with this? Do we
Yes.
need to revise or do anything since there is a typo on the agenda?
We can do it on the second reading.
Okay, well, so we'll just mention it now.
Sure.
The typos where?
It is on the tax map. It should read for Broderick Street.
And
Oh, I'm sorry. See, I still.
Oh, yeah.
It should read Coffee County Tax Map 124E, Group J, Parcel 005.01.
Okay.
So that .00 should be .01.
Correct.
You'll just ding us when it's time next time, right?
We'll correct it
On
on the second and reading, but just, it was a typo.
All right.
So it should be
We'll get that
parcels.
situated. We got a
And this is
motion
the
in
piece
this.
of property you're probably familiar with as formerly a concrete plant.
Yes. Any other discussion?
I like that.
We have we're ready to vote. All in favor? Press green. And opposed, press red.
Okay.
Passes unanimously. We have any other new business, Ms. Moody, that you're aware of? We're going to adjourn and go into the beer board. Before we get too excited about the beer board, we need to add an agenda item where we're changing the date of a special event. So I need a motion to add an agenda item.
Motion to add the agenda item.
Thank you.
And I need a second.
Second.
All right. Blackwell's primary, done secondary on that.
Agenda item.
And agenda item number 20-BB10, we're adding.
Okay, now.
All in favor
Oh, okay, this.
to add that?
We're adding, sorry, the agenda item, okay. We did add the agenda item, okay.
So,
Now we go back to consent, I guess.
I guess, the consent agenda is, all we have is the minutes of the February 10th, 2020 board meeting. Anybody like to entertain a motion on the
Consent agenda.
consent agenda?
Sure.
So moved.
Coach Mathis, primary, Ms. Black, secondary.
Okay.
All in favor? Push green. I don't guess there was any discussion on no minutes.
No. Not usually.
You never know.
All right, so the consent agenda passes 6-0.
All right, we don't have any old business, and now we'll go into the new business, is the agenda item number 20, BB10. The purpose of this is a beer application, special events permit, nonprofit, hands-on science center, family fun day and social evening. Was supposed to originally be held on sometime in February 29th, and they pushed that back to Saturday, May 2nd, 2020 from 5:30 to 8:45. This is, one of their fundraisers at the Hands-On Science Center. So I entertain a motion where we waive the permit fee.
Motion to waive the permit fee.
Second.
Second by Alderman Noyes. Blackwell's primary.
Okay.
Any discussion?
Wasn't there, it seems like, was it the Rotary or something that had some sort of blanket licensing thing? I just was kind of wondering whether it would make sense that Hands-On Science Center might have.
We discussed with South Jackson.
That's who, okay.
Yeah.
Center
Okay.
to bring us a list of all of their events, so we could just approve throughout the year, so we could approve their events.
Would that make sense for this organization? They don't have too many.
I don't
I don't know how many of these do they, I don't think they have more.
Okay.
This is a move, not an additional.
Okay.
Yeah, they're just changing the dates
Okay.
on this, but
I don't think they have that meeting,
Okay.
but thanks for the question. Any other discussion? All in favor? Push green. Let's Anybody help anything else to come before the beer board? If not, I'll adjourn the meeting. And we're going to go into the board study session tonight. We're going to have a discussion of joint use agreements for athletic fields, pools, recreation facilities, or other public property for community programs and leagues. Curtin Glick, our esteemed Director of Parks and Recreation. Take it away, Kurt.
Hello, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Blanks.
You're welcome.
Bringing before you tonight for the study session, a league facility use agreement. We've never had any kind of agreement, no formal agreement before. It's always just been a handshake agreement between the city and the individual leagues that are using the facilities. And this has been a usable situation for many years, and we could probably continue that way in the future, but it would be beneficial to the city and the leagues to enter into a formal agreement of some kind. So in preparation for that, we researched lots of agreements from all over the country, and the best one that I really found was probably from Murfreesboro, and that's the one that I provided in your agenda packet tonight. I modified it and took Murfreesboro out and inserted Tullahoma just to make it more understandable to everybody. But it would, one would have to be kind of custom made for each league that was using facilities to stipulate what we were talking about and agree to. But what is kind of bringing this up, as things change over the years and operations change, cultural things change, there's different kinds of athletics now. There's travel ball, there's more leagues are forming, and with baseball, for instance, several years ago, another baseball league wanted to use the facilities. And so we were able to accommodate them and bring them in. They use the facilities along with the traditional Little League that was already here. That league has since gone away. It's back to just Little League now. But we had no formal agreement for them. So for an existing league that is here, they have no kind of protection at all to let them know that the facilities they've used for 50 years that they continue to keep using, with some stipulations, some assurance of support from the city. And then by the same token, another league or a new league wanting to form and come in has no framework to base what they need to do to form their league to be able to come in. So these agreements would both help the city to establish guidelines. It would help the leagues, either your existing league, to protect your league, to know that you have an agreement with the city that the facilities aren't just going to be taken away from you. And for a new league wanting to come in, you have a framework to work through so you know what steps you need to take to be able to participate and have a league within the city. So that's why we would like to have these agreements. So I'd like to entertain any questions.
So I got a lot of calls on this.
Okay.
Sure, as you know. And my understanding, I just want to make sure that this, and clarify for me, that this is a draft that is a working document, right? This is not like something, like, for example, the $10 fee per participant, and all these things. That's mainly what the concern came from that I heard. So let me just hold up one second. I think a lot of people's concern was that this is a very, there's a lot of legalese in it, which there is, and that's a good thing because it does protect both entities. But the concerns with it is that it doesn't really fit with what they've been doing overall, over time. And I didn't know, I know you said that you'd work with each league individually to create this. Is that correct?
I haven't worked with any leagues yet.
But you would?
Yes, we would. There would be certain guidelines, of course, set by the Board of Mayor and Aldermen that we would want standard across the board to everybody. So so everything is fair. Each league is treated equally. However, different things would be negotiated with the leagues as far as the facilities or fees or whatever. To answer your question, this is directly from Murfreesboro's league use agreement. I just changed Murfreesboro and inserted Tullahoma in the place of it for a league, just for conversation or a starter. You have to start at some point to be able to work to form some kind of agreement.
These agreements are common throughout everywhere, right?
Right, yeah, it's kind of an anomaly that we don't have one yet at this point. And like I said, to protect everybody, not just the city, but the leagues themselves, it would be advantageous to have one.
From my conversations with people, I think their main concern is whether, is that they would want to see it detailed out more what maintenance is from that they own versus the maintenance that the city would own. Within here, I'm just telling you what their thoughts were. And it, like who manages the fences, who's going to manage the dirt, all those things that go with sports balls that I don't understand. So, bleachers, etc. Other things that they had concerns about, which I, as a soccer mom as well, oh God, I just said that. Photographers, whether or not they'd be able to get photographers in with the vendor fee. Because, you know, we all want to see our kids in their shin guards taking pictures and having them cry. But that was another concern, was the vendors that were listed, whether or not those would still be applicable here in Tullahoma or not. And if they could take out photography and not charge a permit fee for those. And concessions, more of an explanation as to what would not be allowed, as well as signage. So I've never worked with the city in my life, and I do a lot of facility use agreements in my real job. I can't believe that we don't have them at this point. So I'm glad that we're taking this initiative to do that, but I do see a need to tailor them significantly.
Oh, definitely. This was, as I stated, this is directly from Murfreesboro. So, of course, they're going to have a lot of guidelines in there that are a lot more stringent probably than we would want to have as far as the vendors and stuff. That might be a clause we just delete the whole thing. There are certain things I would say would have to be non-negotiable that we would need to have, and they would be where it calls out the state law.
Yeah.
And a couple
stuff.
stipulations in there about the concussion law and the other health-based laws that is state law. And right now, I just have a letter that I send to the leagues and say, you need to make sure you conform with these. And it is their part that they have to, but if it was stipulated in here, that would be a whole lot better.
Is it something where, because I think it would also protect the leagues significantly to have this too in some ways, right? So that they could be able to say, hey, we agreed on this maintenance. It hasn't happened yet.
Right. The maintenance, I'm not sure that how deep into the exact maintenance we'd want to get. That would be something I'd be open to spell out dot every I and cross every T or whatever, but
Mr. Worsham's gonna get
and that could be done as an attachment. You could see in the back there are several documents that would be attachments to the agreement.
Yeah.
And that could be added as an attachment to the maintenance agreement, and that would be different for each league because it would be different for each sport.
Right.
Can you speak to how many leagues have already participated in mowing and maintaining the bleachers or removal of trash? Can you tell us how many people have been doing that so far?
We have, again, verbal agreements on that. The leagues do a pretty good job, and we've always asked them to try to clean up after themselves, pick up trash off the ground, get it into cans, and of course remove it from there. As we've gone through time, they've done a whole lot better than that over and over again. The little leagues, they do some work in putting lines and painting the fields, putting the chalk lines down and painting the fields. The soccer, they paint their own lines. We do all the mowing, all the maintenance on the dirt, things like that. We've partnered on fence repairs. The league's done a lot on that, and so just different stuff like that. But
I mean, I did not realize until this came forward that there wasn't already some sort of maintenance fee attached to these things, because I know with any other facility, whether you're at the picnic pavilions, or if you're wanting to rent a room at D.W. Wilson or whatever, that you're expected to have some sort of fee that would pay for the maintenance of that, you know, so the staffing of that room, or the utilities that goes on with it. So it's kind of, I found it really remarkable that these are private organizations that are using public facilities at no cost and with no schedule either. So is it just like first dibs? I was really surprised to see that. So I'm really glad that this is, you know, coming to form. So thank you.
That, in respect to yours, that's where I would disagree. I do not think that we need to start ever charging our kids to participate. I think that should be in anything we do. And vendors, we need our vendors. Another thing I saw in this, and of course we need some more time to read this, is if you're going to sell something in the concession stand, you've got to go along with what the health department says you can sell. And but when it comes to charging kids to play, and this is not this time right here, these are our kids. It's a Little League program that's been adopted here for years and years and years. And you know as well as I do, I coached at Tullahoma for many, many years. And maintenance, never touched that field. They did it all for me. And I'd walk out there and we'd ready to play. And it never had any problems whatsoever. And I think when you have a maintenance agreement like this, you could get into a big hassle. This is what you're supposed to be doing. That's not what it says. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. But charging kids, no, I don't agree with that at all.
Well, and I did talk with some of the people who are with Little League and with the football and soccer and sports balls. And one of the things that they did say is they weren't as afraid of the $10 fee if it meant that their league wasn't having to pay for dirt. If it meant that they weren't having to pay for all these other things that they're feeling like they're paying to ensure that the fields are maintained and the chalk lines are chalked, or those things. And I think that they would feel comfortable with a $10 maintenance or $10 per child fee if those things were it would be negligible, the funding differences. They might be able to talk to that better, but that's what I understood from them. They're nodding at me, so.
And I think, stop me if I'm wrong, Little League got a $2,000 bill for dirt. Is that true?
No, that's not true.
That's not true?
We were not billed, we were asked to provide.
Asked to provide.
They were asked if they wanted to, that's what how we approach the leagues now. We say, we're gonna do this maintenance, do you want to help maintain the field? And we asked.
So if we started charging for those, then we wouldn't ask them, we would just do it. The fence repairs, 'cause I think there was the Cascades, some money was spent on fence repairs by Little League, is my understanding. And we had talked about helping them, but did that ever, splitting it or something there? Did that happen?
Well, that goes deep into a long discussion, and you need to make sure you have all the facts straight.
That's what I'm asking. No,
Right
it's a
now.
question, yeah, and we can discuss it later. But I guess the underlying question is, if we're charging them to use it,
Will it go towards maintenance, or will it go towards stuff?
if we won't be going back to them asking for money for saying, you need to take care of this, or.
Well, it depends on what level of funding that the Board of Mayor and Aldermen provided the rec department. I'll be happy to do everything and build all new facilities, if we are funded to do so. We are operating at the level we are funded at. If we started charging an extra user fee, and I'm not condoning that, once again, I'll say this was an agreement that we received from Murfreesboro, and I copied it. I'm not condoning it. This was a starting point. If we did receive any additional user fees, they would go into the city general fund that would be allocated by the Board of Mayor and Aldermen be used on the ball fields or for police or for fire or however you guys decided to use those funds.
This might be a really dumb question that Jennifer can answer for me then. Is there a way to earmark that? Like say, hey, this came in from here, let's earmark it for X, Y, and Z?
We really don't do that, mainly because I don't know. I mean, we do programming budgets and we look at the revenues that come in, but outside of utilities, which are enterprise funds, almost every other, I mean, I'm trying to think if there's a case that I'm misspeaking, but everything is subsidized.
Does the board have the authority to say, if it comes from here, it has to go to this, whether we've done it in the past or not?
I think you could. I just think it would be an accounting falsehood to think that we track dollars that way.
Yeah.
But yes, you could say that amount of revenue that comes in has to be put back into parks.
Like you think about like a nonprofit when you're fundraising for it or whatever, you say this is designated to X, Y, and Z, right? Like it goes into the general fund, but it's designated to this and it can't be touched unless it goes to that.
But I would say most boards, the reason for the general fund, you don't want to tie your hands
Yeah.
that way. You want to be able to.
But if we're telling them, we're charging you
Yeah.
this to take care of these fields, we want to make sure that money is there and we don't come back and say,
I think if you.
we had it there, but we had to use it
Pull up
something
percent of
else.
funds at a high enough rate.
I don't think
that
$10
it'll
would, that would
justify-
cover.
It would do anything.
And that's why I say you could think of it as reimbursing yourself for the expenses you already incur, but they certainly won't.
I mean, say they had 100 kids,
Won't be
that's
at a
$1,000 that we
self-sufficient
can use.
Yeah.
If they had 200 kids, it's $2,000 to pay for dirt. So there is enough money there to do something, but I just don't want to say.
What I look forward to with the agreements, I think when you were having that discussion back and forth, is exactly the situation that I get put in the middle of. If a league comes to me with a complaint right now and tells me their side of the story, and then I go talk to Kurt and I hear his side of the story, I have nothing that's objective, that's in writing, that both parties have signed to even give me guidance as to, well, what did you guys agree to before the season started? There's nothing. Everything is verbal, and it allows this to be,
Misconstrued.
Yeah.
yes, and for things to change, and for surprises to pop up, and for misunderstandings to happen. Because, oh, I thought that it was gonna be this way, and then later it's not. So what I would hope the intent is, when we put these in writing, because we've gone for years without anything in writing, I would not try to change the relationship when you go to put it in writing. I would hope we're just trying to take the relationship with the leagues and put it into a formal agreement. The way that it is today, just go ahead and get it on paper and keep it at that level. If there's some things that need to change, these agreements are gonna be negotiated with the league. So I mean, ideally, they'll have signed it, and that's how almost all of our contracts are that we bring you. We have the other party sign it first, and you're the last signature. So ideally, we won't be bringing you anything that they haven't already agreed to.
So
And
what
that
if they
hasn't
say
already been
no?
negotiated.
What if there's just something in
Then we
that
wouldn't
they
bring
just
it
can't do?
because they haven't
Well, I
agreed.
mean, on their end, what happens? They can't use the field? Say we say, I'm just making something here, say $20 a participant, and you have to have a separate menu with carrots and ranch, fat-free ranch dressing, and they say, we're not doing that because we don't want to have to stock the produce and do all this. If they say, we're not signing it, is literally canceled that year?
Right, so I think to Alderman Mathis's point, these are all our kids, and the point of investing the public tax dollars to build these facilities is so that kids have an opportunity to play. And we are not staffed or funded at a level where we can provide every single league and every single opportunity that's out there. It's a partnership. We want the leagues to be successful. We want these opportunities to be available for kids. So I just don't think that hypothetical is gonna present itself. We don't wanna make the agreement such that that the league doesn't wanna play on the fields.
I think what you said was true, and I think it's a good idea. what we're doing now, leave it alone. Only thing we're doing is put it in writing and how it's handled now. How it's handled now, we're not gonna add anything, we're not gonna give any more as far as money, because I know when you start off with $10, next year it probably go to 20. So you don't need to do that, just make it what we're doing now. In other words, we're gonna have in writing what we're doing right now. It's not gonna change.
What is the process from here? So, I mean, it's just a study session, but what's the next step?
Yeah, we brought this before you, and I felt that if we were bringing something before you, said we wanted to have an agreement with the leagues to sign, I thought I needed to bring you a sample, and so I brought you a sample from Murfreesboro, so you would know somewhat what I was talking about. So I would see the process going, and I didn't want to go to the leagues and the legwork of negotiating agreements with the leagues, and then you guys not even think that was something you wanted to do. So, because like Jennifer said, you guys would be the first ones to sign it. And, I mean, they would be the first ones to sign it, and then you guys, so, you know, so.
Will we see these again? Say we said, go ahead and do it, will we see it before? Are we gonna have a chance, opportunity to look through it before you show it to them? And are they gonna have a chance to work with you on this?
I think I'll follow any process the board deems necessary, but the way I felt is, we would go to the leagues with it, negotiate something that we both felt good about, that we could agree to, and then we would bring it before the board for final signature. If the league agreed to it, then I guess they would be signing it at that point, but we could bring it before any signature was made.
Kurt, got two questions. First off, I understand that this is a cut and paste from Murfreesboro, and I think it's commendable to have something in writing to govern our activities with Little League. But we've got a wonderful Little League program in Tullahoma, have had for many, many years. Very successful, as we are attributed to some of the people that go on and play Major League Baseball that come out of our Little League program in Tullahoma. So we got a good thing going. Let's don't mess it up. As you pointed out, let's document what we've got, what we've done that's good. We haven't charged kids to play in the past. The first thing I see in this document is that $10. Now, why did we put that $10 fee in there? I know it came from Murfreesboro, that's what they're doing, but I'd say, why do we need it? Do we need it? I don't think so, personally. Secondly, if that stays in there, if the $10 fee stays in there, pay to play, you got some young kids that their parents may come along and said, my 3 kids can't play because we can't play $30 for them to play. Now, what are we going to do with those kids? Send them home? I don't want to do that.
There again, I am not condoning charging anything to the leagues. It probably wouldn't make, you know, as you stated, it's not gonna make that big a difference in the budget anyway. But let me say, we left it in there, that was in Murfreesboro's agreement, so you guys could see what else is out there, what other people are doing. And along with that, if you read further in the agreement, there is a policy passed by Murfreesboro not to let any kid be left out of participating, and they have a financial assistance program that is along with any kind of fees and charges that they have, so nobody would be left out even if the fee was charged.
Then you have to administer that discriminating clause. What are the guidelines to say you get assistance? So I think we're opening up a Pandora's box there in some extent that we don't need to open up, is my point that I would make.
Well, there are fees being charged to play Little League, regardless if the city is charging or not. So maybe there does need to be some stipulation about a financial assistance program.
Well, I think the leagues
if the city's
manage
going to be providing
themselves.
the fields.
Don't the leagues manage that themselves?
Yeah,
Like, I know
they
that,
do.
yeah.
Yeah.
The leagues have that, I
It's
think.
not
And to speak to
compulsory,
that,
but they do.
one thing that I find really reassuring is this part about having a transparency with a financial statement. So not all of these are nonprofit organizations, and I think it's very important that the people of Tullahoma know how this money is being spent, especially if it's being spent on public property. I think that that's important. So I'm glad that that as much as is written in there.
Do we
And you're
have
right, this is-
for-profit sports
Really?
things using
When I say,
public property in this town?
I have no way of knowing right now because we have no agreement and no stipulation that anybody provides any proof of that they're a nonprofit organization. I do think it would be a good thing to have that in. The other entities that the board gives money to once a year, the nonprofits that come up and you give funding to, I'm sure have to present some kind of nonprofit status. Well, using the fields is another kind of subsidy. It's not cash, but it costs money.
Can we
And it's
do that
city-owned
with-
facility, so.
Can we do that with just a nonprofit status and not require them to have to hire an accountant, bring books, and then like something else
I
here
would think
says
that
at
most
any,
of them, would probably already have.
it just
the
feels
nonprofit
intrusive to say.
Right, yeah. Well, I
Well,
mean.
it should, if it's a nonprofit, they shouldn't have a problem presenting that to us. If they're using a city-owned facility as a nonprofit, that's a great thing. If it's a for-profit entity using a tax-funded
Yeah.
city property, I think we should charge them some money.
But I also don't know of anyone that does that.
Yeah, that for-profit I think would be different than the little
But
that we had here for.
we need to have proof that you're for profit or you're not for
Well, you
profit.
don't you have a certificate, right?
Well, you should.
Nonprofit
You've got
status.
501c3 status, but
Yeah.
some people function, if I'm correct, 501c3 is the national status. There is also a state level status too. And I don't know which one's more strict and which one's
The
not. but
federal
there's-
always is. The 501c3 is harder to.
Than the state one?
I think so, yes.
Okay.
I'm just not comfortable
Yes.
with. I wouldn't be comfortable with. I just don't like, well, the whole big government thing.
This is a big
and
government
and
thing.
us stepping in and saying, we want to see your financials. We want to. I mean, that's
And-
just, and it is city property, but it's taxpayer property, really.
I will say I've signed
So if somebody
a
out of
ton
town's
these
using it, maybe.
in my lifetime. I probably
But
signed
You gotta put something
200
somewhere.
in a year of these facility use agreements, entered them, and worked with lawyers to build them. I've never had to provide full financial disclosures, but I have had to provide my 501c3 status and show that it was current.
That makes sense.
And that's what I typically have done with them. Yeah, because I was with a nonprofit, very legitimate and easy to pull up the stuff too.
I think that's what it states in here. isn't
No,
it?
it says
it doesn't
full
ask for like,
financials
it asks for like their
Financial
budget.
statement.
Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
all their
right, yeah.
income. And I think like asking for a 501c3 letter should cover your bases on
I
that.
think that's the main thing that it says in there.
Yeah.
Which section is it?
I'm on
What
part
page?
F on page 77, 3 of 8. Part F is what I'm looking at.
But as long as they're
And then it's
501c3.
also part letter O as
I
well.
have read contracts like this that will say upon request.
It has that as
We'll
well.
open your books upon request, and many times you don't need that.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? It's something you put in the agreement, it's a worst-case scenario clause. If there's a suspicion or a reason to suspect some kind of wrongdoing, then you've at least required it in your agreement that upon request, they will open their books.
The point of this is just to say, hey, guys, here's an understanding of when your games are scheduled, and here's an agreement of the maintenance, right? And so if we can just cut out as much of this that's just fluff and just there, like the permit fees for,
Every time that the city accepts a grant, whether it be from the state or the federal government, one of the clauses, one of the things that we agree to when we accept those dollars is that the city will abide by Title VI. And Title VI says that we cannot discriminate. And I think one of the things like we're talking about now is the proper use of public facilities and questioning, what types of entities should get the free or subsidized use of those public facilities. And so I just want to put that kind of thought in your mind that
the context of this could be that the citizens expect that if the city's condoning the use of the fields, that we are doing some level of homework to investigate or to know that these are legitimate entities and there's not any kind of fraud or embezzlement going on. So whether you mean to be or not, you are lending the city's credibility to these leagues when you're allowing them to use the public facilities. So I would just think about that in the drafting of the agreement. I'm not saying that we absolutely have to see all their financial documents, but I do think that might be where we maybe want to have something in there that we can act if there are claims or complaints coming from citizens that they're wanting us to look into it.
Is it possible to have an agreement for local Tullahoma based and an agreement for out of town or nonprofit? One for local and nonprofit and one for profit.
Yeah, that's standard too.
So they are separate. We can have.
I think this is, all we're kind of delving into right now is the leagues that operate here, and the only leagues that operate in Tullahoma are local leagues. We have groups that come in and use tournaments and stuff. That's a whole different aspect.
So we don't have any for-profit leagues that are operating on Tullahoma facilities that you know of?
Not that I know of.
Okay. That would be just, that's my question mark, is the for-profit guys.
I would think most of them are probably already 501c3s or something like that, because they have to, they're bringing in money, they have to have tax, so.
Tax exempt status.
Yeah, tax exempt status of some kind, or else they're filing a tax return of some kind anyway. They would want that. And they're just asking, to have that status to use the field. As you would ask each one of the groups that you give funding to during budget times. So.
I have one other question. User may conduct one free invitational tournament that is scheduled with the Tullahoma Parks and Recreation Department Director. If the invitational tournament is rained out, and an alternate date may be used if available. Now, what if they have 2 or 3 invitations? Tullahoma's known for having invitationals.
Right.
If they have 3 invitationals, it says that the tournament fees then will be applied. So they'd have to pay for them.
Correct. That's how we operate now currently. There's one, each league is allowed 1 tournament a year for free, and then after that, they would pay the field usage fees. That's what we do now.
Well, I can see a field.
And most leagues only have 1 tournament, frankly.
Gotcha.
I don't know. And when they have additional tournaments is when they bring in outside people, and that's when it falls into the category that Alderman Berry was speaking of. That's outside entities coming in and doing it.
There was a day that we had tons of softball tournaments.
All the time.
All the time. That's fallen on hard times, I think.
Yeah, it's kind of with travel ball and everything, the whole aspect. We can still have some tournaments, they'd be smaller echelon tournaments. Actually, I've been in talks with some groups about having those. They've gone to bigger facilities now.
Well, back in the day, this is probably 20-plus years ago, the Weekend Warrior softball guys would come out, I guess those people have all aged out and died. Just,
Yeah,
they can't get at.
the adult slow pitch softball's a lot. Miss Maybe could tell you her experience in Murfreesboro, and Murfreesboro has a lot bigger facilities than we do, and they found that they were out-competed in size for tournaments, I think.
Really?
All of them haven't died because I'm still here.
Are you playing softball?
I played a lot of softball here.
Not anymore.
I played a lot of softball here.
My hamstrings just hurt thinking about it.
I think you've given us a lot of good discussion tonight on this. I think, number one, we wanted to know, before we spend much more time researching or trying to craft documents, think about the terms, we wanted to know, is this a direction that you're comfortable with us pursuing? Starting to put together these agreements with the leagues. And then, second, knowing that direction and hearing some of your concerns, I think our job will be to go back and put together, how are we gonna do this? You know, is it gonna be one by one individually with leagues, or maybe have a public meeting? And obviously, there's a lot of interest. But just looking at the audience tonight, there's a lot of interest, and I'm sure you have concerns that we need to hear. So maybe we do that and talk about what the major points are that we need to consider, what the major issues are, and then start drafting from there. So I think that's kind of the next thing on my agenda, is to think about the process a little bit more and how we start to craft it.
Let me poll the board real quick. Who thinks it's a good idea for us to start entering into thinking about an agreement?
I would say yes, as far as having an agreement. I think this document that we have before us tonight is the fee to play is a non-starter. So if we can get over some of those hurdles that, like that, I think having a documented procedure is good.
Alderman Dunn?
I think anytime you've got a written communication, that leaves little room for error. So yes, I'm for pursuing something.
I'm also for pursuing some kind of document to protect both entities.
Absolutely, as long as they're working closely with the leagues. And one thing I did want to bring up that might be a concern for the leagues that I don't know, they haven't brought to my attention, is that whenever I've gone into one of these, I had a lawyer on staff that would work with me on them. I don't know if they do, so if there's somebody that can help advise them along as they, I don't know how that works. So that might be a difficulty for them. That's the only thing.
I support agreement, not this one. Maybe 10% of that one. But it needs to be something that they are involved in every step of the way. And my phone isn't ringing because they're happy. I find investing in them more important than investing in a downtown property, so I'm willing to take. That was it. That was an abrupt end.
that was
a rough day.
I'm
I
tired of
am
running out of
in
breath.
charge of having a written document, so they will know which way they're going. I am not in agreement with charging these kids to play ball at any time. And in fact, if you want to know the truth about it, I'm not in favor of our teams working on the fields. I think you can get into a liability problem there.
That needs to be written.
Especially if you go out there and the fence is knocked down and they say they're going to fix that fence, and then something happens to a kid and it really falls, then they're in trouble. I just don't think that's a good idea.
All right, Ms. Moody, you have enough to go on. And Kurt, thank you. Appreciate it. Thank y'all for coming out tonight. Clapping or booing or whatever, part of the process. What do we have next, Ms. Moody? We're going to talk about election
You still
cycle.
have energy for me?
Yes.
Okay, great.
We're not going to go to 11 o'clock tonight, I'll tell you that.
All right.
I hope.
So, as you know, unanimously, all of you have had an interest and asked me to look at how we could look at changing the election cycle. I know the two goals. One would be to move on to the even year general elections only, so that we don't fall into the situation where we're paying for elections all by ourselves. And just right up front, I will say, there's one aspect to this that I do not have the answer to. It has been very elusive, and that is, what document or where is it located, the city schools terms and elections?
It's in our charter.
Yeah, I've heard that.
It's deep in our charter, but it's in our charter.
I'll tell you what, I tried to find that.
I control F and I went through
as well.
for 4 hours until I found it. I found it when I was running, but that was long.
So that's a piece of it that is important, and then we need to still research. Like I said, I know Steve Worsham and MTAS have tried to help us find the answer to that. We submitted a letter, this is a little before I came, There was a letter submitted to the State Attorney General's office asking for an opinion, and they declined to research it because they said it was a local matter and that was our job to look into the city charter and codes. So we don't have an answer to that piece yet, but what I have gotten an answer to, and Alicia Hodge at MTAS has been very helpful with this, and that is that there, in 2010, there was a state law, really an amended law, that made it easier for municipalities to move their elections by ordinance to the August or November elections. And it also said that when we pass that ordinance, we can extend terms by 1 to 2 years, no longer than 2 years, but we can extend terms of sitting aldermen to make the change happen. What we can't do is shorten any of your elected terms of office, and that made sense to me. You've been elected for a certain term. We shouldn't be able to override that and shorten any terms. So that's part of why it takes so long to cycle things through, is because you can only extend, you can't accomplish it in a very short time frame. So, that being said, it'd be very easy for us to move to the August general elections or November, either one by ordinance. What's more difficult is, since we're on 3-year terms, we have to change the terms of office, and that's inside our city charter. And I'll pass this out. This came from MTAS, if you take one and pass it around. This document describes how you get a charter amendment. But in brief, I'll just say it takes a resolution that we would have Senator Bowling or Representative Bricken carry through the legislature for us. I know typically they prefer to have these things November, December timeframe so they can submit it in early January when they go into the legislature. And it does have to pass here, goes to the legislature for approval, and then comes back here and has to pass again by this body to enact it. And what we would be doing is moving you to 4-year terms, is what I would presume. Some even number, because you can't stay on odd number terms and have even year elections. So I've done a little bit of looking, and some of you might remember when Jody Baltz was administrator, he did a really extensive PowerPoint to show you different options for how you can accomplish this. Scenario 1 is on a longer sheet of paper, and scenario 2 is on a shorter sheet of paper. Otherwise, they look very similar. And this is keeping in mind what I think several of you had mentioned to me. What is really the fastest way to accomplish this? And it seems to me what we would do is we would move to the general election dates. To extend their term at least 1 year. Some of you by 2 years, so that you would fall on even year election cycle. And then we would have our charter amended to create 4-year terms beginning with those seats in the 2024 election and in the 2026 election. But that's how you could accomplish it in less than 10 years. And then scenario 2, what happens is you could have just another scenario. One alderman could be on a 3-year term, stay on a 3-year term without the extension. But that's the only difference.
So what year, scenario 1, when would they be all on a even year? What year?
26.
26.
2026.
Yeah, 2026.
2026.
And then scenario 2, also 2026. Okay.
What I
but-
like, so scenario 1, what would happen is you would have the mayor and 2 aldermen elected on one cycle and 4 aldermen elected on the other cycle. Under scenario 2, you would have it, 3 aldermen each time. 1 with the mayor, 1 without. And there are, of course, we can look at other scenarios. This was solely what I did to try to accomplish, okay, what is the fastest way that you could accomplish this change?
And
not necessarily the fairest way, because I know I haven't yet kind of run a scenario to see. I don't think you can do it with no extensions. I don't think that that's possible. Because I know that was something Mayor Curley, early on, he had said, I really am not in favor of extending my own term. I don't want to do it. Yeah, I have to look at it harder to see if that's possible, to have no one have a term extension.
I think that's when it got into 15, 20 years.
Yeah, maybe.
I think that was what the problem was.
You know, Manchester went through this, how long ago, 5 or 6 years ago? And they got on even years. And there was some screaming and yelling and hollering initially, and then that's just gone away.
Yeah.
But I don't know how they did that.
What will be very easy for the school board is they're already on 4-year terms.
They are.
So moving them to the even year
Won't be as hard.
elections should not be as hard.
Do we have
But
to,
for you, it's the 3-year term.
do we have to ask them, or can we just do it?
That's what we're trying to find. That's
It's in our
exactly.
charter.
They're chartered by us.
But we gotta look at state law too, because the state law has many, many provisions about school boards that your charter really can't change.
Yeah.
Some of it are not.
Did the people in Manchester stop complaining because they're not still mad about it, or because it was just there's nothing we can do, you guys did it type deal?
Some of that, you know.
why were they complaining about it? It saves them money.
Well, people are gonna complain about something.
That's very true.
You know, doing this, because it looks like some of us are gonna have to be extended. And there'll be people that yelp about that, but.
Is there a way to
It
ask?
cost us about $30,000
That's
to
what we're
run
trying
an
to get an
election.
answer to.
on the
Is
school board.
is there a way for us to do a referendum and ask them, the people, and let the people vote and say,
What was your question?
is there a way, I'm in favor of moving, I really think we need to do it. But is there a way for us to let them vote and say, yes, we're okay with this plan? And if the people say yes, I don't know, is that a referendum or?
I wouldn't go through that mess. I mean, that
I
might
mean, I
be
like to-
expedient, but, I mean, I've been on the board going on 11 years, and this is like the 3rd iteration of this that I've tried to, and I don't know, you know, I told Ray, you were the last one that brought this up, and I said, good luck. You know, it's like beating a dead horse.
I'm gonna keep hitting it because
That's why I think if we went through all the resolution and all that, you know, you're gonna be gray-headed like me, and it's, you know, it's, if we'll just pull the trigger and do it, if the law will allow us to do it.
if we talk about people complaining, the only complaints that I've heard is, why in the heck have you not already done it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It makes so much sense to do it, so they're
I mean, there'll
concerned that we're
always
not
be naysayers with
moving
anything that we
faster.
have brought up, but, you know, initially I was like, ooh, we're voting to extend our terms, and that was not what we were elected for, and, you know, but then I looked, like I said earlier, when I've been in a couple of off-year elections when there's nobody voting.
No one turns out. But
Nobody turns out.
I will say the people who turn out, they want to vote. They're people
Yeah,
who really want
there's
to vote.
always gonna be people that vote, but there's, you know, if it's a bigger election, presidential year, this fall, people will turn out. In August, they'll probably turn out too, so, you know, I'd like for everybody to turn out all the time, but it would make it easier for them if we were all, you know, if we had more, if they had more stake, you know, more skin in the game, I
Not
guess.
not to really like get detail oriented tonight, but my preference is the scenario 1, because I feel like the mayor position is a stronger position. So to have it with 2 aldermen coming off rather than 3 aldermen coming off with the mayor, I think that's a more reasonable scenario.
I agree.
So,
We may get it done before we all come. 200.
I'd love to see it, but I still would love to see some sort of, because we need to, we're spending over $100,000, 120 over 10 years. But it would be nice if we were able to get an okay from
It helped.
the